Best Book Bits podcast brings you Jamey Lutz, a workplace cultural anthropologist drawing on his extensive experience in organisational development, culture and leadership. Jamey is a noted speaker and a facilitator with expertise in the disciplines of organisational cultural change, customer loyalty and employee engagement. Author of the book Pathway to Purpose, Big Ideas for Fueling Irresistible Corporate Cultures. Jamey, thanks for being on the show.
Michael, it is fantastic to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
No problem. So for people who don't know who you are, give us a little bit of background to yourself. Where did it all start and how did your journey unfold sort of in your early 20s?
Sure. So early 20s, that's looking back a little bit, but I'm happy to do that. Back in my 20s, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina, Shelby, North Carolina, and had always been real passionate about sports, and particularly basketball. And coming out of high school, I wasn't good enough to play at a collegiate level, but I knew that I wanted to go to a school that was really well known for basketball. And so I full transparency, applied to only one college. Good thing I got in, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, who's known for their the Tar Heel basketball team. And Michael only missed one or two games in 4 years, and I had the flu or something. So that kind of paved the way for me deeper into my post-college years to end up doing an internship with the Orlando Magic, but begin to kind of understand that you can actually do something with your life that brings you passion.
Yeah. And I want to sort of unpack what you were doing as a working with Orlando Magic as an intern for 12 months, and also working as a busboy as well, working 16 hours a day, busting your nut, and how it all sort of that particular culture led you into where you are now, which we'll unpack as well. So can you talk about sort of the early days, working those long days and long hours as well, and how that sort of trained you for to where you are now?
Yeah, so, coming out of college, I decided, you know what, I love the game of basketball, not able to, and by the way, I tore my ACL in high school, and at that time, it was really difficult to overcome that injury. So I knew I wasn't going to be playing basketball, but wanted to find a way that I could be involved, and sent resumes out coming out of college for internships with all the NBA teams. Ended up getting an internship, an unpaid one, for the Orlando Magic, who at that time had only been in the league for a couple of years. And at that time, Shaquille O'Neal, who I think most people know who that is, was just coming on board as a rookie with the Magic. And it actually changed the scope of the NBA and the scope of the Orlando Magic, put them on the map, so to speak. And it was really interesting, Michael. I was, as I said, basically working for free, except for a small stipend on game nights. And on non-game nights, I was working at Quincy's, which was a steakhouse chain, serving big fat yeast rolls. So that was an interesting time of my life. I was absolutely exhausted, but the interesting thing was I was absolutely inspired and in my element. I absolutely loved what I was doing. I was a PR, public relations intern for that first year. Loved it. And that's when kind of it began to form my thoughts around, you know what, it's possible to do something in life that you're passionate about, and it becomes more than just work. It becomes kind of who you are and what you want to kind of achieve in life. See, I think we're all hardwired to want to make a difference in life. It's not just about money, it's about meaning. And that was one of the things that really stood out to me. So was able to fortunately begin to do some special project work for the team after the internship, and ended up staying another 6 years with them. And that paved the way kind of for my next kind of calling with the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company.
Yeah, thank you for unpacking that. Yeah, I've read the book, and it's a fantastic book. If people watching now, do you have the book in your hand to hold up? And
I do. Interestingly enough.
Yeah, cool. So Pathway to Purpose, check it out on Amazon. So we're going to go through the book a little bit. And in chapter 1, you talk about your early years, how you worked for the Orlando Magic, Shaquille O'Neal, you're talking, Penny Hardaway, Horace Grant, and all that stuff. I'm a Chicago Bulls fan, so I remember as a kid in the 90s watching the NBA Finals from Australia on the TV, leaving school to watch Game 7 in, I think, 96. But you talk about you made the finals in NBA in 95 with Orlando Magic, is that right?
That's right. Yep, 94, 95.
Yeah, awesome. And one of the things that you sort of discovered in the book you talk about is that true magic lies at the intersection of passion and purpose. And this sort of set you up for some of the guiding principles in your future career opportunities, which we'll get into as well. To talk to me a little bit sort of what happened next with leading the path and going across to that drive and that interview you had with the Ritz-Carlton. Can you unpack that a little bit? That was a little...
Yeah, so, it was interesting. I didn't travel a lot with the team at the time when they traveled on the road. But when I did, and in general, the team would always stay at Four Seasons, Ritz-Carlton. And at that time, the organization, which is still owned and operated by the DeVos family, had decided what would it look like if we became an organization like the Ritz-Carlton that's renowned across the globe. So we began to kind of explore the Ritz-Carlton, meet with some of their senior executives, and begin to understand how can we bring that type of aura and panache into the sports arena. And so I began to get to know some of those folks and had let them know, hey, if any opportunities ever come up with Ritz-Carlton in the service experience, talent management, that type of thing, I would really have an interest. And with the Magic's blessing, I got a call, and at that time there was a Ritz-Carlton in Palm Beach, Florida, which was a couple of hours from Orlando, or 3 or 4 hours from Orlando, and was asked to interview, and then subsequently was asked to be their director of quality, which was a senior leader hotel management role that basically oversaw all of the service elements of the hotel, of the resort, everything from surveying to service recovery for unhappy patients, training and development around service, et cetera. So I jumped at that opportunity, Mike, and it, as much as I love working for the Magic, I would say Ritz-Carlton really shaped my passion for creating exceptional experiences for both customers and for employees. It was an absolutely amazing organization. And even post-pandemic, I think they're still a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, amazing. And what I got from that in reading the book as well was mainly the interview that you had with your first day with Wolfgang, and some of the principles and some of the guiding messages that he said. And I'll read some of them just to refresh your memory. But number one, he reminded me that achieving anything in great in business and life requires great commitment and sacrifice. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you learned from working there in the early days in terms of their sort of culture as well?
Yes. Ritz-Carlton, for those of you that are familiar with it, is one of their mantras is we'll move heaven and earth. Now you may have to pay for it as a consumer, but we'll do anything that's not illegal, immoral, or unethical to create an amazing, amazing experience for our customers. So it really shaped my concept of what exceptional experiences look like.
Yeah, and you talk a little bit about in the book about being an anthropologist in terms of culture. What does that mean?
Yeah, for me, an anthropologist is really understanding the uniqueness of every organization. That's what culture is, really. It's kind of the unspoken and always displayed beliefs and actions of the organization. And so an anthropologist is really kind of getting under the covers to understand what that looks like, and to refine it, to continue to refine it over time, to create an organization that employees find, I think, unleavable, and customers find irresistible.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about some great principles and sort of some of the distinctions of culture as well, and I'll just mention a few of them while we're here. So one of the great things about culture, is, especially company culture and corporate culture, determine what matters. You talk a little bit about that. Dodging pain at the expense of purpose, failing to properly assess our perceptions of work, enduring overbearing bosses, prioritizing profit over people. Do you want to expand a little bit on some of those?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the dodging pain for purpose. I think a lot of times as human beings, we wanna do everything we can to avoid pain, which is, again, it's kind of a natural tendency to do that. But the reality is, we've all heard no pain, no gain. That's where we actually grow and stretch ourselves and become in my opinion, the best version of ourselves. So if you want to create an amazing culture, then you've got to be willing to stretch yourself and never become comfortable with mediocrity or comfortable with what other organizations are doing. Because if you stand still, you're gonna look back and your competitors will have already passed you up.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Chapter 2, you talk about leading the path, and people playing at home might not know the story about the Spanish conquistador Cortez in 1519. Do you want to expand on that and tell us a story about sort of burning the boats?
Yeah, I love this concept. When I came across it, I was like, this is really a cool kind of mindset, one that needs to be applied in the business community. Yeah, Cortez, I think around the 1519 time frame, was trying to conquer the Aztec Empire and had about 600 or so of an army with them on multiple boats. They landed on the shore, were getting ready to engage the enemy, and Cortez supposedly said to them, before we engage the enemy, I want you to go back to the boats and I want you to burn them. And he was really kind of drawing a line in the sand there to say, hey, we're gonna achieve success or we're gonna die trying. And while it's certainly not that much of a serious issue for organizations, I think it's still very, very compelling that, if you want to be the best, you have to be willing to give it 110% all of the time. And imagine what we could do, Michael, if our employees were willing to give of their energy and their passion on a regular basis and not just mail it in every day, but they did it because they see the underlying kind of reason for what they're doing, their why, their purpose. If you can align the individual purpose with the organizational purpose, then you've created an environment where people will burn the boats, where they will go out of their way to help you and themselves and the organization achieve remarkable things.
Yeah, well said. And just to elaborate on that, in the book you talk about the military mission underscores the importance of senior leadership in any endeavor, including the world of business. The courage and conviction of the vital few set the cultural tone for the larger enterprise. Yeah, and you also go to, great corporations or great corporate cultures, they're fundamentally seeded, cultivated, and harvested with the C-suite. Do you want to talk about why that's so important and how from the top works down through the bottom as well?
Yeah, I mean, intuitively, I think we know this, but it's easy to forget that I won't say, Michael, that it's impossible for an organization to reach great kind of performance and excellence without top-down buy-in. But it's extremely difficult to do because the essence of the effort starts with senior leadership, typically the CEO, that has a vision for what he or she wants to create for the organization and is able to effectively cascade that down across the company. If others within the organization don't see that passion and that energy and that desire to serve being modeled out on a daily basis, then we can say whatever we want to. Organizations have mission and vision statements all across the world posted in their boardrooms. But in many cases, you can ask employees, what does that vision statement mean to you? They may even memorize it, but it's not instilled in them. It's not become part of their DNA, and so it doesn't change behaviors. That's the responsibility of the C-suite to drive that down throughout the organization and to help employees see how their own personal vision and their own personal purpose aligns with the organizational one.
Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. Is there any tips or any things that employees can do to change the culture from the top, or is there any tips you could give people that are listening now who are in the C-suite that they could use in relatively short time to help create those cultural changes or even start the conversation?
Yeah, I think absolutely. If you're not in the C-suite, don't despair, right? I mean, culture is not just made up of the entire organization. Every department, every team has its own culture. And as a leader, if you have influence on others, you're a leader, you can begin to create a culture within your small team, department, division, that you would like to see replicated throughout the organization. And if others see the passion of your people, if they see the alignment between your culture and purpose, then others will begin to follow. Now, if you're in the C-suite, I think the most important thing is you have to define what your vision is for the organization. And how does what you do relate to the service that you're providing for your customers or the end user? Because that's why we do what we do, is to make a difference. And if you can, again, cascade that down as a senior leader, don't just verbalize it. It needs to be in writing, and it needs to become part of your performance management process. It needs to be part of your onboarding process. And the overall actions of the organization have to display that each and every day.
Yeah, thanks for unpacking that. And I'm going to have a little book reading right now. So you give a great example in the book. There's an excerpt about a 1960s speech given by Hewlett Packard co-founder David Packard. Further highlights the prominent role of organizational purpose. So I'm just going to read a little bit from the book. He talks a little speech about, I want to discuss why a company exists in the first place. I think many people assume wrongly that a company exists simply to make money. While this is an important result of a company's existence, we have to go deeper and find the real reasons for our being. Purpose, which should last at least 100 years, should not be confused with specific goals or business strategies, which should change many times in 100 years. Whereas you might achieve a goal or complete a strategy, you cannot fulfill a purpose. Like a guiding star on the horizon, forever pursued, but never reached. Yet, although purpose itself does not change, it does inspire change. The very fact that purpose can never be fully realized means that an organization can never stop stimulating change and progress. Can you unpack a little bit about that, or what that means to you?
Yeah, and again, I think it kind of goes back, Michael, to what we were discussing a little bit ago, is that the purpose of an organization is larger than to just make money. Money is an output, but it's not the reason that we do what we do. The reason we do what we do is for a greater extent or a greater purpose than individually or collectively within the organization. And so when we look at an organization as simply a means of making profit, that's critical. You have to do that to keep the lights on. We have to understand the larger picture, though, is around purpose. It's not just about the money, it's about the meaning. It's about inspiring the hearts and minds, the logical minds of our people, and the emotional hearts of our people. Aligning those two things, again, creates an organization that can't help but be profitable, that can't help but be successful and admired by people far and wide.
I want you to talk about thing that I'm thinking about right now, what you said, is a little bit about silos. So you've got a major corporation. Let's say you've got an international conglomerate. Let's talk any brand in the world. You go through some in the book where we're going to jump on purpose statements. But silos meaning, yes, you've got like the Ritz-Carlton, you've got an international company. They've got 40,000 employees. How do they differ from other companies where you might have one parent company in another country and then one particular store and one particular team, and they're all doing different things, so you're getting a different customer experience wherever you go? What makes the Ritz-Carlton a little bit different in terms of they're all on the same page, per se, in your experience of working with that company?
That's a great point. There's a number of ways the organization has successfully done that. Number one is you have to hire people that align with your culture. So the recruitment and the onboarding process for Ritz-Carlton is amazing. And you begin to ingest the DNA of the organization from the first day that you come on board. But even before that, the company is extremely meticulous about who they allow into the organization. But nothing works over time if it's not reinforced. And I think the reinforcement piece is what differentiates Ritz-Carlton from 99% of other organizations out there. They repeat a list of service values, their mission, their vision, over and over and over. And one of the vehicles for Ritz-Carlton to do that is their daily lineup. So regardless of what property you are at, every day across every work shift, individuals get together within the individual hotels, and they talk about what's going on for the day, but then they repeat and enliven one or more of the service values, and they talk about how they've seen that lived out, what that looks like and sounds like within their particular hotel. And so it's a combination of a pep rally and a re-enlivening of the mission, vision, and values of the organization. And so you get it every day, over and over and over. And and I don't have a problem with people saying that. A lot of people think it's kind of like a cult. But it's a cult of people that are committed to doing better on behalf of their customers and providing a service that's unparalleled. So I think, just to put it in a nutshell, Michael, I think the reinforcement of what's important to an organization cannot be overstated. You have to continue to reinforce those things that make you different. And over time, people see that as a second nature. It becomes naturally part of who you are to follow that vision, the mission, and the values of the company.
Yeah, awesome. Some of the notes I took from that, and just to repeat what you said, was aligning culture and, having the right, allowing the right people to come into the organization. I think that's huge. I think, hiring and HR, hiring first is the gatekeeper to an organization, making sure you don't have the wrong people in there, not only to poison the culture, but yeah, if you get the right people in an organization, wow, you can go north. But if you get the wrong people in an organization, and I've seen this over my years in, working 20 plus years in the real world, you can definitely go south, or you can just go east or west and sort of go around in circles. You talk about also refinement and repeat, a little similar to the army. I mean, any disciplined, especially the military, you're going to rinse and repeat every single day. You're going to have your shoes shine, your bed made. You're going to go through what the mission is. You're going to talk about the mission. And I think that's what they've embraced with the Ritz-Carlton and understanding that. That's really, really great. And service values. One thing I loved about the book I'm not sure who said it, but I think it was the founder of the Ritz-Carlton said, we serve ladies. We are people that serve ladies and gentlemen by ladies and gentlemen. Did I stuff that quote up? Or
You're right. You're right there, Michael. So we're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And Michael, I've been away from the Ritz-Carlton, in other roles outside of Ritz for many years. But even today, I can still recite the mission, the credo, the employee promise, and other elements of it. it becomes part of who you are, and it really is a driver of what you do wherever you go.
We'll come back to the book. Let's go into what you're doing now. So what happened after you left the Ritz-Carlton? What was your next sort of stepping stones in your career, and how did that lead on to what you're doing now as well? So do you want to unpack that a little bit?
I've been with a number of different organizations since the Ritz-Carlton, including the banking sector. So I was with Wachovia Bank for a number of years. And in all of these roles, that's part of why I wrote the book, is I've been in cultures that get it from a service perspective, and I've kind of played in that customer experience, service excellence, talent management type of position. And so I was with Wachovia for a number of years. Then I had a second stint at Ritz-Carlton. So I loved Ritz so much, I had an opportunity to come back in a corporate role, serving about 21 of the properties on the East Coast, doing quality improvement, teamwork, and customer experience projects. Awesome experience. Then went with an organization that did sales and service training. I led up the service training with a company called Force Performance Group. And after Force Performance Group, was with a commercial bank here in the Atlanta area, which is where I live, called Atlantic Capital Bank, and oversaw customer experience, but also a lot of the employee side from a talent perspective, training and development, et cetera. And then most recently, and by the way, I've been happy in all of these organizations. It wasn't that I was looking for other opportunities, they kind of found me. And they were things that I was very drawn to because of their culture. So currently with a company called ChenMed, ChenMed, and it's an organization that serves senior citizens that are on Medicare here in the United States. An amazing organization, whereas in our country, most people or most healthcare organizations get paid by the number of services that they deliver. Our company is what's called value-based. We don't get paid by insurance companies unless we can show improved health outcomes for our patients. And the way that we do that is to create trust and rapport with our patients so that they are more likely to follow recommendations from the doctors, like Medicare or medicine adherence, nutrition, proper nutrition, exercise. And by doing that, we're able to be profitable, but at the same time, improve the health of our patients. So we like to say everyone wins within ChenMed. It's a wonderful way to go about doing medicine, and it's a culture where I oversee the service portion of our patients. So I'm kind of responsible for developing the framework by which we meet our customers and serve them across all touch points. It's been an amazing year and a half or so that I've been with ChenMed.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing the story and how it sort of all unfolded for you there as well. And I'm sure you've got plenty of stories through there. But going back to the book, we jump into sort of purpose statements, and you go through sort of the organizational founding CEO purpose statements. And I'll read a few of them out. So just to jog your memory, you talk about Walt Disney, and Walt Disney is to create happiness by providing the finest in entertainment for people of all ages everywhere. Talk to me a little bit about Walt Disney and how it all kicked off for him. Could you talk about a little bit about Walt in the book?
Yeah, I think he was the type of person that was that just inspired others to be the best version of themselves. You know, I think all of us that have had the opportunity to go to a Disney property have experienced the meticulous nature of the service that they provide, from the visual to the sights and the sounds and the smells, and everything is done with the customer in mind, the guest in mind. And it reminds me a lot of the meticulous nature of Ritz-Carlton and how they are just adamantly all about addressing all of the sensory aspects of the customer, guest experience, patient experience, whatever you want to call it. It's I think Disney has earned this kind of notoriety as a beacon of excellence, and it's certainly been a company that I've benchmarked and watched from afar for many years.
Yeah, awesome. And I'll read some of the other purpose statements out. So for the Ritz, it's to provide the finest personal service and facilities for our guest. For Starbucks, with Howard Schultz, he writes, to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. And last, Apple, Steve Jobs, this is interesting, this one, is to make a contribution to the world by making tools for the mind that advance humankind. Tools for the mind, that's interesting. You think he makes tools for the hands with the iPhone and all the other products, but more for the mind. Talk to me your thoughts on purpose statements from CEOs.
Yeah, I think it's purpose statements are aspirational in nature, right? You're never actually there. Your culture will never actually attain what the words on the page say. And so that stretches us to continually improve our processes, our experiences for our patients and our employees. I think having a documented written purpose statement, again, you can memorize it. That's one thing, but you have to get it on paper, and then you have to inspire your people to live it out. You have to model it out from the top down. And it's a game changer when people can, in their own words, articulate why they do what they do. It's important. I don't know if you remember Simon Sinek. He talks about why, and he says many organizations can tell you what they do. Many can tell you how they do it, but not a whole lot of organizations can articulate why they do it. And to me, that's what the purpose statement's all about. It's like, at the end of the day, we don't want to just develop or go through transactions with our customers. We don't want it to just be transactional. We want it to be transformational. And I think a purpose statement helps you achieve that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for those listening, playing at home, whoever you work for, see if you can find out what their purpose statement is. I've got a history with Mercedes-Benz, and their purpose statement is the best or nothing. Really simple, really easy to remember, but it is true. Going through chapter 2, you also talk about excellence, and I'll talk about some of the notes that I took. So you talk about, yes, your experience with Ritz-Carlton and obviously what their expectations with excellence. So from their vantage point, they talk about you manage processes and you lead people. Now, in second place was never good enough. Mediocrity was unacceptable. You also talk about excellence was never a choice. It was a business mandate. Can you talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I'll talk about a couple of those. I think I actually remember Horst Schulze, who was the president of Ritz-Carlton, one of the founding president, say that you manage processes and you lead people, which I think is a really interesting point. And I talk about in the book the difference between kind of managing and leading. But it's so true. We don't manage people, we manage things. But we lead people. And our role as leaders is to take our people to achieve what they would not normally achieve, or to do what they would not normally do so that they can achieve what they would not normally achieve. So I think that's really, really powerful as we think about managing the operation, which is true, but you have to, more than anything, you had to lead your people to go where they would not otherwise go. So I think that's really, really important. And some of the other ones that you mentioned too, give me a couple of other. You'll have to remind me of what I wrote.
No, that's okay. No stress. It was making excellence a forever thing. You're talking excellence was never a choice. It was a business mandate. So it was from the get-go. And I'm sure that when anyone came into the organization, they knew that, mediocrity was not acceptable, that excellence was the bar. And if you couldn't meet that, then you weren't the right fit for the role.
And that's a great point. Everyone, we try to be very, very careful about who we bring in the organization, but it's not a perfect science. Some people are going to make it in that are not a good fit. But the good news is that, it's in the best interest of the person that it's not a fit, as well as the organization, that if there's not an alignment there, it's time to move on. And I think great organizations don't hesitate to make those decisions because it's actually a disservice to the employee to not have them move on, because they're not gonna be the best that they can be if they don't follow and align with the organizational mandates.
Well, it's actually, if organizations can't let people go as well, and don't have not only the legal requirements, but the balls to let people go who are dead weight, that's actually bad for business as well. Moving on, chapter 3, you talk about building a crafting a legacy. And one of the things, like some of the notes I took from the book, where you talked about performance over here and dignity over here. And in the middle of those two is inspiration. What do you mean by that? Performance, dignity, and in that intersection of the two is your inspiration.
Yeah, so think about it. There are some organizations that are 100% performance driven, right? And so it's all about performance. If you have to throw your fellow colleagues under the bus, or if you have to kind of navigate or straddle that unethical versus ethical, you're going to do it because you're going to hit your numbers regardless. That's kind of demoralizing for employees, and it's certainly not the type of organization I would want to work for. And then on the other side, you've got organizations that are all about dignity, and there's certainly nothing wrong with dignity, but dignity at the expense of, doesn't really matter how well you perform. We're going to reward you. We're going to provide you with the same level of benefits and recognition that we do for a high performer. Either one of those two extreme can be really damaging to an organization. So in the middle is kind of the sweet spot where the performance and the dignity come together to create a situation where you're rewarding and you're also holding people accountable in a really powerful way. And I think at the end of the day, if we're all honest with ourselves, we want both of those things. I talk about reward and recognition. They're kind of two sides of the same coin. People want to be rewarded, but reward without recognition is demoralizing, and recognition without reward is kind of hollow. And so you want both of those blended together. So that's what that graphic was all about.
Yeah, thank you for unpacking that. Yeah, I totally agree. I've worked in organizations where you might be rewarded privately, but publicly you want to be recognized by your peers, not by your superiors as well. We're probably going to run out of time, but we can just touch on some of the other chapter topics before we take off. Is chapter 4, you talk about teaming and nurture collaboration and creating an environment of well-being. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a great study in there. I talk about Project Aristotle, which was a project that Google launched on, I think, back in 2012. And they're huge, obviously. They have lots of teams within Google, and they wanted to understand, like, what was the secret sauce? What made organizational teams really perform well? And they did all kinds of research with their internal psychologists and scientists, and it was really hard to figure out. It wasn't what you would expect necessarily. It wasn't the smartest team members made the best team, or the ones that had previously worked together, or the ones that liked each other necessarily. At the end of the day, there were a number of things that drove it, but above and beyond everything else was what they call psychological safety. It's an environment where people feel safe sharing their views, their ideas, their disagreements, and they don't feel like there's going to be some retribution for doing that. And so organizations like to talk about how innovative they are and how creative. You squelch all of that if there's this underlying fear that what I say, if it's against what the rest of the organization or team is saying, is going to be somehow negatively viewed. And so that creating an environment as a leader where your people feel safe to share their opinions is extremely important. And so that's one of the things I would point out there is just the importance of really vulnerable, authentic teamwork.
Yeah, nothing. Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say. Very simple. So we are going to run out of time, and we've only gone through a quarter of the book, so I'll leave the rest of the book for the audience to go out there and to read the book. But before we take off and talk about where they can find the book, you end the book about talking about Ikigai. Realizing your Ikigai is most often achieved at the intersection of four primary elements. What you love, which is your passion, what you're good at, which is your talent, what you get paid to do, which is your career, and last, what the world needs from you, which is your purpose. Do you have any thoughts about that? And I thought that was really nice about finishing the book with talking about your Ikigai.
Yeah, I love this concept of Ikigai, and I kind of came across it as I was trying to figure out how do I land the plane on the book. And it's this concept of, like you said, bringing together what am I really good at, what can I get paid for, what do other people, is it something that other people would need, and when you bring all those into that thing that you end up doing, then it really doesn't become work. And work actually works. It begins to work when you find something that you're passionate about. And so I love that concept. And the countries, there's a couple of really small countries that have implemented that concept of Ikigai. And it's interesting, those people end up living longer and are more happy than practically anywhere else in the world. And I think it's because they are doing something that motivates them, and they realize it's bigger than themselves.
Yeah, you talk about Okinawa in the book is where they live. The most people that live to 100 is because of that. But we're out of time. Tell my audience and people listening there where they can find the book, where they can buy the book. Hold it up again. What's the best place they can reach you? Is it a website or social media as well?
Sure. So you can obviously get it on any of the, make sure I'm getting this in the right place.
Yeah, no, we can see
any of the online typical avenues, Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. You can also find out more about me or purchase the book on my website, which is simply Jamey, Lutz, LUTZ.com. But would love to hear from you. I also have a Facebook, on some social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Would love to connect with anyone that either is living in their purpose through their organizations, or is looking for resources or tools on how to do that going forward.
Perfect. Jamey, thank you for being a great guest on the Best Book Bits podcast. And to my audience out there, follow Jamey, buy his book, check it out. It is amazing. Once again, Jamey, thanks for being a great guest, and I'll speak to you soon. Okay?
Thanks very much, Michael. Appreciate the opportunity.
No problem at all.